In 1967, the physicist and sculptor Robert R. Wilson was hired to build the world's largest particle accelerator that would smash particles together at close to the speed of light. Doing so would likely offer new understandings about the nature of our world. But since this was a time when science was funded by pragmatic senators and no one knew what benefits would come from this, Wilson would have a hard time convincing the US Congress to fund this project without some obvious political capital. Fear of Russia, though, within the Cold War era, was at a fever pitch. So using this rationale, there would at least be some chance. So when Senator John Pastor of Rhode Island asked him to justify allocating $200 million to fund this project, the room was stunned by Wilson's reply. Pastor asked, "Is there anything here that projects us in a position of being competitive with the Russians with regard to this race?" And Wilson responds, "Only from a long-range point of view, of a developing technology. Otherwise, it has to do with, are we good painters, good sculptors, great poets? I mean, all the things we really venerate and honor in our country and are patriotic about. In that sense, this new knowledge has all to do with honor and country, but it has nothing to do with directly defending our country, except to make it worth defending."
You're breathtaking. You're all breathtaking.
Quite breathtakingly, Wilson had reached not for defense, but for the profound. Not fear, but wonder. And miraculously, the funding was approved. His answer suggests the dangers that come from embracing only the amazing results of science at the expense of the process, of tradition at the expense of openness and creativity, of fear and short-term gains at the expense of beauty and wonder. Welcome to the Unified World Community Project. On this channel, we're going to be looking in depth at the problems facing our world today and observing the solutions that are available to us. Here are the 10 sections I've planned out so far. So today, Video 1 of Section 1, I want to begin by talking about the spirit of science. Because the obstacles which science faces today and throughout history make so much more sense when we can really engage with what science is and how the dominant perspectives about it have played out in history. You'll realize you can start to feel where maybe we'd like it to go. The heart of science. How did we get here? How could science, an essential ingredient of global health, wealth, and power, have become a political toy? How did it come to be rejected out of hand, miscompared, and even reviled by politicians and industry, judges and justices, by large swaths of the voting public, the mainstream media, and all this with pretty small consequences? What does it mean for democracy when our political and governance structures seem to have so little regard for the role of scientific evidence? To understand what's happening and to have hope of overcoming any given issue, the answer begins by looking deeply at the heart of science. What about its spirit makes it so inherently important and powerful? In simplest terms, it's because of the deep, intimate relationship between knowledge and power. Knowledge and power go hand in hand, said Francis Bacon, so that the way to increase in power is to increase in knowledge. And in the heart of science is a reliable method for creating knowledge and this power. Science is a tool that we use to create descriptions of reality that are independent of us and our identities, opinions, or beliefs. We call these descriptions knowledge. This knowledge can be expressed in language, mathematics, graphs and images, or some combinations of these. To create this knowledge, we use this scientific method, which is a collection of techniques to measure the way that things are in nature, independent of our perspectives.
The scientific method creates a framework for logically and systematically experimenting in order to find answers. It has several steps, including forming a question, researching background information, making a hypothesis, doing an experiment, analyzing data, and communicating the results.
These techniques used properly, long enough, will help cull objective, reliable knowledge out of our subjective perspectives. They've evolved over time and will continue to evolve. Like our senses, the scientific method is fallible and has led researchers astray. But it is the very best method we've come up with so far of building a literature of reliable knowledge about nature, and it has proven to be very powerful. In fact, it's proven to be one of the most powerful tools humanity has ever utilized. Galileo committed an incredibly powerful act in 1610 when he wrote about his observations through a telescope. And why did the church go to the lengths to ban his book and place him on house arrest for the remainder of his life? It's the exact same reason that political battles are fought over issues like climate disruption today. Facts and observations are inherently powerful, and that shapes the political outcomes that affects everyone's lives. Because the truths which science describes are shared equally amongst all life, it happens to naturally flourish in democratic societies, and why those same societies, like China during their Cultural Revolution, or the Roman and Ottoman empires, Renaissance Italy, Russia, and Nazi Germany in the 1900s, why they've all fallen when they've turned their backs on it, making science subordinate to some kind of authoritarian ideology. Science is inherently democratic, since nature and evidence speak to the president, the pope, and the common citizen all the same. Its spirit lies in wait, entirely reliant on the well-informed voter. Another reason that science flourishes in democracies is because it happens to be both progressive and conservative. It's conservative in that it's careful with knowledge and cautious about making new assertions until they're fully defensible. But it is also progressive in that it is, and always must be, open to wherever the evidence leads, independent of belief and ideology, and focused on creating new knowledge. Scientists are not intrinsically one party or another, unless a party or political orientation begins to become authoritarian and begins to turn its back on science. Without public interest in science, a democratic government can easily become paralyzed, or worse, corrupted by powerful interests. In a flourishing democracy, it's critical for researchers to connect with the public and show the worth of their work to everyone. For everyone to discuss and debate the new discoveries and their meanings, and for the public to remain inspired and supportive of science in the long run. Science creates knowledgeable descriptions of nature that's inherently powerful, and that power makes science inherently political. But despite how science can be used destructively, the practice is not an expression of power over others. Its practice, instead, is a search for truth with others. This is a critical distinction. Conclusion. The universe is itself a technology. It is the greatest technology. It works perfectly. And it's appropriate to say that science has been here alongside the technology of the universe since the very beginning. Well illustrated by the Gospel of John's introduction that, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Science begins with the humble acceptance that while we can know many of these laws well, the perfect symmetry of the universe's ultimate design, from the largest body to the smallest particle, is so far more complex and far more extraordinary than our present comprehension can embrace. Shakespeare said it wonderfully. "There are more things in heaven and on earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy." For example, consider the perfection of a snowflake, its intricacy, its design, its symmetry, its conformity to itself and originality from all else. All our mystery. We wonder at the miracle of this awesome display of nature. Yet, if this is just a single snowflake, what else could our universe do? And so the truths which science describes are shared equally amongst all of life. It doesn't care about your status or your history, and especially what you already believe. It will whisper its truth to all who listen. And we can celebrate this gift by not throwing cold water on our beliefs in an attempt to make them concrete, but to celebrate the shifting of the sands as they would form the new mountains we would climb, and atop which we'll build our new sandcastles. And yet to understand that these castles are monuments to the never-ending number of mysteries within our universe. So hold to your beliefs, stay true to your values. These are the values of our parents, of our parents' parents, of our friends, and of our society. They form the structure in our lives, and to lose them all would be to unravel the fabric of our whole experience. But still, in the spirit of science, examine them one by one. Review them piece by piece. Don't dismantle the house, but look at each brick and replace those which appear to be broken, which no longer support the structure. With a better understanding of science, our next video will be a quick introduction to some of the main challenges science is currently facing, and it will set the stage for the events of history to catch up to. And as we see accurately how resentment towards science has always grown, as it is today, can we begin, at last, to heal the conditions from which it sprang. Thank you.